We begin with Tom turning into the director who got GG'd at the beginning of the movie and stealing the key back so they can save the planet. Tom gets the key and heads off celebrating, not knowing what's to come, because he walks off telling Sonic he got the key when Shadow bursts through the roof, and this is not good because Tom's face tech starts bugging out, turning him back to the commander. And if you watch the movie, you know this is his biggest op, like Tuka to King Von. Shadow turns around looking for the key and sees the commander having him instantly crash out. Tom began trying to plead his case, but Shadow wasn't trying to hear it, giving him the meanest right hook, sending him flying back, knocking him out. Next scene we see that Tom is being taken away on a stretcher, and at this point Sonic is speaking out. He's currently experienced 4 out of 5 stages of grief, and right now he's on anger, because Tails tries to calm Sonic down, telling him everything will be okay. He was not in the mood, turning around mad as fuck, getting on Tails' ass, testing him like crazy, and you know it's bad when Knuckles comes in and tells you you took it too far. But Sonic was not trying to hear this. The whole movie, Knuckles has been the one tweaking out, at Sonic trying to keep him in check like he's a little kid. And now that they have an actual reason to crash out for real, he's trying to be the voice of reason. This is when I knew Shadow had given Knuckles the Hulk effect. Sonic then asks for the Master Emerald, which is like crack to crackheads but for hedgehogs. But Knuckles tells Sonic no, because he knows this nigga's not in the right state of mind. Right now he's moving like Melly, straight murder on his mind. And like a kid wanting candy, no was the wrong answer, because he instantly gets ready to beat the information out of Knuckles. And niggas really be fake gangsters, because at first Knuckles was prepared to run his ones, but when he seen Sonic was really ready to slam him out over some stones, he instantly turns into a pacifist, putting his hands down and telling him where it's at. Sonic then pulls up and gets the emerald from this guy and uses it instantly, transforming, looking like an off-brand Dragon Ball character, and goes to chase down Shadow, who's in space chilling. So we got Shadow touching on the glass, and as usual he's having an emo rant, reminiscing and talking about how Maria will have her justice now. He gets interrupted by a bright flash and he just stares at it confused, thinking it's gun shooting missiles.
Is gun launching missiles at us?
But instead it turns out to be Sonic, who flies through, snatching Shadow up, instantly putting him in that bully pose. And we see Sonic winding up the meanest right hook while Shadow just looks unfazed, staring at Sonic, just egging him to throw the hook. But Sonic is moving like a bitch, doing everything but throwing the hook, so Shadow takes advantage, ripping his hand off his chest and sending them both flying down to the ground. They land, creating a roadway-sized hole, having dust go everywhere, and Sonic gets up confused, because in the split second of them landing and getting up, he's already lost sight of him. So he says, "Show yourself, coward." Shadow hearing this says bet, rubbing his hands and spawns behind Super Sonic, hitting him in his chest, hard as hell, sending him flying back, having the emeralds fall out. And watching this had me pressed, because this whole movie Sonic was just getting exposed as a fraud. He was moving like Thor without his weapons, just no hands. Sonic goes flying back and looks up to realize he no longer had the jewels, and Shadow realizes too, so they run in both, grabbing some emeralds, and the boxing begins as both of them transform. And look at the fear in Sonic's eyes when he realized Shadow had gotten a boost, had him looking like CJ from GTA. Shadow slowly sinks in the moment, thinking about how he's gonna show up with a hose, and he does it instantly, casually blocking this punch from Sonic, and just look at Sonic struggling to move this nigga. This was his sign to get in the weight room, because this was not a fight he should have taken. Shadow punches him in the face before following up with 2 hits, sending him flying into the air before grabbing him and slamming him into the ground. Had him moving like those balloons outside car dealerships before swinging him away into a bunch of mountains, showing us he was going toe to toe with the Avengers, or who could cause the most unnecessary property damage. Sonic ended up landing so hard he made a whole volcano erupt. He gets up dazed, trying to shake it off and goes to get up, but Shadow is already there, playing elite offense, slamming him back into the rock, throws a punch while Sonic blocks and then sends them both flying back. Sonic then hurls Shadow into the air and proceeds to hit him so hard he gets sent into 3 different regions. As Sonic was beating on Shadow, he started moving like Tony C, picking up Sonic's fighting pattern, shaking him off, and then kicking him away, sending him flying, when Shadow gets it, flaming him for pulling off the power up and still getting his ass beat. Shadow finishes it off by playing off with Sonic's emotion, quite literally doing him how Askeladd would always do Thornton by trolling him about his dead dad. Sonic comes in, punching Shadow so hard in the face, he gets sent flying to the moon. And Sonic was on demon time, because Shadow tries to get up, but he doesn't even give him the chance, flying in, grabbing him by his chest and winds up another crazy ride. But like last time, he's moving like a bitch, and Shadow peeps this, testing his gangster, telling him to stop being a bitch, and hit him and points at his heart, telling him to punch there. And this is when Sonic gets a flashback, which long story short, was enough for Sonic to realize revenge is not the answer, saying, "This is not who I am." Getting up and starts his talk no jutsu speech, giving Shadow a free therapy session, Station at Batmaria. They team up with the power of friendship and start speed blitzing to the saucer when Dr. Robotnik sends out a whole bunch of robots after realizing Shadow had just backdoored him. The robots were obviously doing no damage, moving like D-Lo and the Lakers, just a straight liability. This was really the equivalent of how they'd be shooting at the Transformers, not realizing that niggas are literally bulletproof. Then they get to work, destroying the robots, and I'll skip most of this because it gets repetitive. But they hit a cool alley-oop, sending Shadow flying at the robots, and having them commit friendly fire, and even having Sonic put in some work, before hitting this cool ass pose. Sonic then charges towards Shadow, and we see that this was all a scheme for Shadow to continue aura farming. Shadow then hits his crazy finish on the robots, showing us that his bag is deep, because every single fight, he keeps pulling out random bullshit.